Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages, welcome back. It's Cover One Draft Weekly. It's John Helmkamp. It's my buddy, as always, Daniel Harms. And for a variety of reasons, I feel like I haven't talked to you since Thanksgiving. I don't know what happened. It's been a while, but we're back, and the draft is passed, and both of our teams made a trade with each other, which I didn't expect to happen. And we got a lot to talk about, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. And I'm glad that we're back because I know that, we try to, it's really hard. I want to preface this by saying it's really hard to start a draft podcast in the middle of draft season. Like it's extremely hard to do that. So we had some conflicting things, some scheduled problems, and we're back and we're hopefully going to continue this, be as consistent as we possibly can for you guys. And I'm doing really good with the draft stuff. Now, I'm going to let you guys know right now, if you're watching this on YouTube, I have lots of water around my eyes. That's for a variety of reasons. My allergies are acting up like crazy. So I'm going to be like holding this McDonald's cup to my eye to cool them down, which seems to really help. So that's why we've got lots of water on the face. But other than that, I'm doing fantastic. And I'm ready to talk about the outcome of this draft.
Yeah, me too. Really looking forward to it. This episode is apparently brought to you by a variety of reasons, which seems to be the slogan to start it off here. But I'm excited to get into 2024. Like you said, it is kind of interesting diving into a draft show in the middle of the draft cycle. But I know that you and I are already looking ahead to 2025. So we're going to start getting on that here shortly. And we're going to go hard for this next year's draft cycle. It's going to be a blast. But before we do that, we just had the 2024 NFL draft, this class that we've been talking about for a long time. We went down, we saw a lot of these guys at the Senior Bowl. You were at the Combine. I was at the draft, which was awesome. Just an incredible experience. Thank you, Cover One, for that opportunity. And there was a bunch of chaos. And I guess we should just dive into it. I kind of want to just talk about the top 10, just kind of briefly before we get into some of the teams that we're excited about. The top 10. Right off the top, it basically went chalk, right? It basically went how we expected it to. It was Caleb Williams to Chicago at 1. Ryan Poles is now saying that they knew they were moving on from Justin Fields at the end of last season, that they've had Caleb Williams circled in pen for like 6 months. Well, thanks for that, Ryan. Would have been nice for you to tell us. Number 2 was Jaden Daniels to Washington. Number 3 was Drake May to New England. Number 4 was Marvin Harrison Jr. to Arizona. Number 5 was Joe Alt to the Chargers. All of this was like basically every mock draft out there basically had those 5 picks in some order. There was talk of teams potentially looking to trade up and get to one of them, but at the end of the day, these teams stood pat, especially those top 3, knowing that, hey, we like the quarterbacks. We're going to take our quarterbacks and we're going to try to turn the page. Marvin Harrison at 4, slam dunk pick. Joe Alt at 5. Malik Neighbors at 6. Okay, this is where the wheels started to go off at 7. The second offensive lineman taken, which we started to hear smoke about it, I think kind of like the morning of, maybe a little bit the night before, but really
the day before.
Yeah, was J.C. Latham out of Alabama, going to Tennessee at 7th overall. And then it got real sideways with the 8th overall pick. So I want to set the stage a little bit because I was up in the media workroom for the NFL draft, and there was hundreds of people in this giant open cavernous space, rows and rows of tables and all that stuff. You know, a lot of them are getting picks tipped to them before it's announced on the stage and stuff like that. And just audible gasps start popping up. And I'm like, what is happening? And I look up at the TV just in time to see them announce Michael Penix Jr. is the pick to the Atlanta Falcons, 8th overall. Who, buddy, what were your thoughts when that one came down the pipe? I didn't think anybody saw that one coming.
Yeah, that was not on it wasn't even on the Atlanta Falcons radar. Apparently, it didn't feel like it was because a month before the draft, they were like, hey, Kirk, here's $100 million guaranteed. And you're going to bring us into this new era of maybe winning the NFC South. We're not even going to tell you that we're going to draft this guy. I'm not going to get into all the shenanigans that I have opinions on. If you guys want to know more about this, I'm going to be I've said some things on rgrfootball.com, the Monday stream, the live Q&A. There is a nice big old rant in there if you're interested. And other than that, I mean, I don't have any. I'm not opposed to drafting a young quarterback if you have a veteran coming off of an injury. I'm not opposed to that in the slightest. So, from an ideology standpoint, if you're in quarterback need, especially if you think you're going to be there in a couple of years, drafting a quarterback in the first round, letting him sit, no problems with the strategy at all. I think it's extremely good process. This was not good process, but
No.
Michael Penix ended up being the pick, and let's assume right now that he is going to be 2 years the starter in Atlanta. It's hard to project exactly what the offensive line and even weapon room will look like. We know they'll have Bijan. We know they'll have Drake London. Maybe not Kyle Pitts. Maybe not. Maybe they won't be drafting 8 again, like they have the past 4 years. Just set some things in motion. So it was definitely a shock to me. I was on with actually football guys, Matt Waldman and Sigmund Bloom, talking about what had just happened because it was a shock to all of us and definitely not something we expected. But at the end of the day, he's going to have his shot to prove and live up to it. So we'll find out in a couple of years.
Maybe. I mean, maybe it's a couple years. As Terry Fontenot said, that if he sits for 3 or 4 years, then that's a good problem to have. Bro, he's going to be like 28 years old when that comes around, getting his first starts in the NFL. Like, you can draft a young quarterback. You can sign a veteran to a lucrative free agent contract. Doing both does not make sense to me whatsoever. One or the other there. I don't get it. We'll break that down a little bit more in depth, I'm sure, and then maybe next episode we might talk about some teams that
it'll come up
necessarily
for sure.
smoke their drafts. And then in so doing, Roma Dunze falls into the lap of Chicago at 9. So they go young stud wide receiver to pair with Caleb Williams. And your Michigan man, JJ McCarthy, the Minnesota Vikings with a small trade up to go get him. And you now have the quarterback of the future in Minnesota to replace the aforementioned Kirk Cousins with just an insane weaponry up there in Mini. So a really, really fun top 10. JJ McCarthy to Minnesota. Lots and lots of fun. I kind of wish that he didn't have to be a day one starter. Like we've talked about that. But if he is going to be a day one starter, at least he's going to a place that has a lot of talent. So that's giving him a pretty good shot right out of the gate.
Yeah, I like the fact that they're going to run the ball. Kevin O'Connell brings in Aaron Jones. Their offensive line was very good. You didn't have a guy last year who could take advantage of the offensive line, and it's young. It's getting better. So it's in a good position. And honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Sam Darnold start a few games. I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's definitely within their own possibilities. If it is an open quarterback competition, there is no chance in my mind that Sam Darnold starts week 1. But if it's a foregone conclusion that you want JJ McCarthy to grow a little bit, then that's different. But if you come out and say it's an open quarterback competition, I don't give Sam Darnold a chance because I don't believe in Sam Darnold anymore. I did like 3 years ago. I have now completely come off the rails on Sam Darnold. So at the end of the day, it's a great landing spot. We know they're going to pay Justin Jefferson. They have this rookie contract. And Justin Jefferson can now use that to his advantage to get paid. Look at what's happening around the NFL with wide receivers. AJ Brown just got massively paid. This is going to happen. So in terms of the situation not changing much, that's good for him. So all in all, I think that it was mostly within the realm of possibilities. JC Latham may be a little bit of a curveball, obviously Michael Penix, but at the end of the day, I think JC Latham makes a lot of sense in Tennessee. And so that's all that really matters at this point. He's going to be I think he's going to play right tackle. I don't know if he can play left personally, but we'll find out what they do with that. So definitely a lot of fun with that top 10 after the chalk went off the board. We had some exciting things happen.
Yeah, we really did. We know the NFL schedule release is coming up here shortly. I think next week, potentially, maybe next Thursday, I think is what might end up happening. We'll see. I don't have the date exactly in front of me, but typically it's around this time every year. Second Thursday in May seems to be a common date in the past where that's happened. That'd be next Thursday. If it happens right before we record, that'd be great. We can talk about a little bit of that, maybe how it impacts JJ McCarthy if you're looking at the schedule and you think, okay, maybe there's an easy matchup on week 4 or something like that. Go, okay, cool. Let's give them 3 extra weeks to prepare and go through the motion of
Absolutely.
just game readiness, game preparation before they put them out there. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. So that was the top 10. Plenty else happened in the first round. But what we want to talk about is we want to get into 8 teams that we enjoyed what they did. Maybe it wasn't necessarily a smash, but it was a good draft. Eight teams that kind of caught our eye when we look through 3 days of picks, what they ended up doing, who they brought in to support their roster, maybe improved in some areas of weakness. And we're going to start it off with the team that would have had the rights to Caleb Williams had they not traded it away to the Chicago Bears last year. The Carolina Panthers. That was one that you brought to my attention earlier today. Why did you like what they did?
So when you don't have a first round pick, you have to make things happen, right? You have to go get a guy that you believe is a difference maker. You may not like the pick. You may not believe in Xavier Legette. That's fine. Again, he was a top 10 receiver in the class for me personally. Mm-hmm. And I do think, it's funny. I actually called this. As soon as Carolina traded up, I said, this is for Xavier Legette. And the reason being is because you look at their wide receiver room. Yes, they have Jonathan Mingo from last year's draft pick in the pick 30s from 2023, but they don't have a physically dominant player at wide receiver that you can just go to. Spencer Rattler doesn't have the strongest velocity-wise arm in the draft, but when everything seemed to shatter around him at South Carolina, what did he do? He threw it up to Xavier Legette, and he came down with it a lot.
Yep.
And that is something that he needs to have. Now, you look at their wide receiver room, you still have Adam Thielen, who was I turned the clock back for them just to continue to catch everything. It was open. They trade for Deontay Johnson. Now you have these 2 guys that you can work underneath and then take the top off with Xavier Legette. You have a legitimate deep threat on your team that knows how to not just win vertically, but go get the football and out physical people. That translates to the NFL, even if you're a 5th-year breakout. So I liked the move there personally to trade up and go get him. And then you add Jonathan Brooks. The reason I'm excited about this is because they actually just said, hey Bryce, we're going to give you an actual chance this year. Last year didn't really work out. We're going to bring in Dave Canales, who was a very good offensive coordinator, got the best out of Baker Mayfield. Maybe we can do get the best out of you this year. You bring in Legette, you bring in Brooks, Jatavian Sanders, whatever. Fine. We'll kind of see how that works out. I don't mind the fact that he was selected in pick 101. It wasn't, it wasn't hugely a huge amount of draft capital, but I also like them getting Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. Frankie Louvu left in free agency to go play for the the Washington Commanders, so he can kind of come in and take that spot. I like shots on both Shao Smith-Wade and Jaden Crumedy, who is this big athletic defensive end that you might be able to move around the defensive line a little bit. And then they draft Michael Barrett out of Michigan, who's just a sound football player, special teamer. You can have him out there, get one of those 4 core special team guys. So I like what they did overall with the fact that they did not have their number 9 pick. You're still able to get a lot of what you need to help this move along.
Yeah. I love what you said there. They went into this offseason with a very, very intentional plan in place that we are going to support Bryce Young at all costs. David Canales was a great hire. I love that for Bryce. I think that's awesome. Last year, anytime that you watched the Panthers, the wide receivers couldn't separate worth a damn.
Correct.
They couldn't get open at all. You're looking at it, and even when Bryce did have a good pocket, it's like, where's he supposed to go? Which you're looking, you got 3 routes and all of them are running curls and they're blanketed, and you're like, what is he supposed to do in that situation? Well, now Canales can bring in a more inventive offense, can kind of scheme things up a little bit. Deontay Johnson is a very good wide receiver. He can separate, he can run great routes. He's very capable. So you have him, you have the savvy veteran in Adam Thielen, and then the athletic profile of Xavier Legette, like you said. That's a good wide receiver room. I think it really profiles well to help out Bryce Young. So I think they did everything that they could in order to see if they got it right. I think when you have a quarterback that you selected first overall, you traded the farm to go get him.
Yeah.
And year 1 was so rough. Well, you need to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to see if you have the right person in place. So I think that they definitely expedited this and they went, yeah, we're throwing everything at it to see if we at least see progress because, you know, after 2 years, patience starts to wear a little bit thin in the NFL. If there's not progress being made, if games aren't being won, if steps aren't being taken by the quarterback. So unfortunately, the NFL moves fast, and Bryce Young is going to have to show some serious growth in order for them to keep going in that direction. Just ask Justin Fields and Zach Wilson and every other class or every other quarterback from the 2021 draft class, except for Trevor Lawrence. So Carolina was a good one. I'm going to bring up one of mine. The Eagles, like every single year, just smoked it. And I don't know how they keep getting away with it. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell, who we saw down, we saw him down in Mobile. We're talking about him as the first cornerback off the board, most likely. We thought that he might go in the teens. Oh, he falls right into Philly's lap. No big deal. And then Cooper DeJean, who's like a cornerback safety hybrid, wherever you want to line him up. I think he's better as a corner, but he has that flexibility for them. You know, there's a lot of talk about moving him to safety, whatever, wherever he's going to play in the secondary. He's sitting there at 40th overall for them. So they just double tap their secondary and go, yeah, that sounds fun. Like, how did the NFL let that happen? I don't understand it. And then Jalix Hunt, very athletic pass rusher out of Houston Christian. You look down Will Shipley, cool, get some running back depth there. Guy that has a lot of experience in the NFL. Anaya Smith, special teams, great, cool. He can come in and be your, day one returner with these new return rules.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Trotter Jr. going to his dad's old team in the 5th round.
That's just poetry.
And I'm pretty sure he's going to wear his dad's number. I think that I saw that. I'm not trying to
so cool.
It would be amazing. Have him jog out. I heard this on the radio when I was driving home. I'm not going to take credit for it, but there's going to be some fan in the stands for a preseason game if Philly plays against Pittsburgh and they see Joey Porter Jr. going up against Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and they're going to be like, "What year is it? Like, what did I just win?"
Right?
Yeah, like it's going to be incredible. Great draft just all around, and then they took a couple stabs on the offensive line late, and then your hybrid wide receiver, tight end, Johnny Wilson, whatever you want to call him, in the 6th round. That's just an upside pick, right? You're just like, okay, cool. We'll take the guy that's incredibly tall with a huge wingspan and see if he turns out to be something. But again, they did that right after extending AJ Brown on a new contract before the draft started. So Philly getting Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean is enough to get an A in this draft alone. And then everything else after it's just, cherry on top.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with what they did, considering they bring in Vic Fangio to be their defensive coordinator, and they draft 2 guys that, Quinyon, who maybe his best at press man, played tons of zone at Toledo, so he knows how to do it, and you can kind of let him be what he is on the outside. And Cooper DeJean, who I think is best as a cover 3 corner, if you're going to play him at corner, makes a lot of sense to put him there. I have my own problem with the Jalix Hunt pick. I don't think that was smart. I understand going with the upside. I don't think he's a day 2 type player, but regardless, it doesn't really matter all that much. They brought in Bryce Huff. The dude's not going to play this year regardless. Anyway. So yeah. I love what they consistently find players that make sense. And when you know what you're doing as an organization, and you can consistently get those types of draft picks, last year it was, we're just going to keep beefing up the defensive line because we need to beef up the defensive line. This year, our DB is not very good. Let's go ahead and fix that. And they absolutely did that with these 2 guys. They're going to come in and be day 1 starters at worst. So I really do like that. And just the rich get richer. Johnny Wilson is one of my guys. I love him so much. So, and they think they can play on the outside. I'm good. Like, you could draft him, say he can play wide receiver. You're speaking my language. That's all I care about right now. All right. So
I remember a few years ago when Mike Evans had a couple games where it was like 1 catch for 1 yard and a touchdown. It was just the goal line fade, and he got shut out the rest of the game. Well, welcome to the Johnny Wilson stat line experience, boys and girls.
Yes. You know what?
Put him on a fade at the 1 yard line. You're going to fake push, and then you're just going to loft a fade to the corner of the end zone with Johnny Wilson's like 6'6" frame or whatever he is.
Put both of these guys on one side with him and AJ Brown and just say, someone run a slant, someone run a fade. We're going to throw it to one of you. Doesn't really matter. Oh, that's just not fair. I don't like that. But We're going to move on to the Cincinnati Bengals, who I think had a very good idealistic draft for them. They needed to upgrade their trench play. You look at them last year, outside of the injury to Joe Burrow, they need tackle help. They desperately need tackle help. What do? The guy who might end up being the best tackle in this entire draft with Amarius Mims at pick 18. I understand the injury concerns. I really do. I still think that this is a home run pick. Then they come back with Chris Jenkins, who was at times before this draft cycle talked about as the best defensive tackle prospect in the class. And well, he's not Byron Murphy as a pass rusher, that's for sure. He is a stout run stuffer who has a tool bag. He's got a really nice spin move. He has that push pull. He has the arm under, arm over, things like that. It's really more about the plan that he needs to kind of shore up. They took a swing on upside with Jermaine Burton. With T. Higgins not going to be in the building next year, it definitely seems that way. Jermaine Burton slides into the T. Higgins role, which makes sense. Neither of them are fantastic route runners, but they are excellent down the field. And Jermaine adds a real speed element. So I like that as well. Then we're talking about drafting 2 tight ends. Well, we don't throw to the tight ends. Well, we're going to start throwing to tight ends, guys. Since Cincinnati's about to throw to tight ends, you draft Eric All and Tanner McLaughlin, who a lot of people had Tanner above Eric All on the consensus board. Like they had him as a day 2 grade. So I love that you can get him there at pick 194. Then you just come in and draft a couple of Ole Miss players and Cedric Johnson and John Anthony. We'll see what you get out of some depth pieces here. And they bring it back with Matt Lee in pick 237, which I think is a fantastic value for a center who maybe next year steps up and is your starter. So it's a really good draft overall. It addresses some of their actual needs, gives them some upside picks, and gives you another area for Joe Burrow to hopefully stay healthy, because that is the most important thing.
It is. Joe Burrow's health is the biggest question mark right now. You know, he's had 3 pretty significant injuries in his career already. The knee injury that wiped him out of his rookie season, and then he entered last year with the bad ankle, played through it, and then finally he ends up hurting his wrist and misses the end of the season with the wrist injury. It's like the guy's got to stay healthy. We've talked. Well, we haven't talked. I'm just saying we proverbially, as in the NFL collective, everybody has talked about Joe Burrow being, a generational quarterback, comes right in, takes the team to the Super Bowl after they were the first overall pick. Like he walks right into the building. Now you're in the playoffs. Now you're a Super Bowl team. Since that Super Bowl, there's been a bit of a falling off. It hasn't lived up to that. And it's like, did they just hit their ceiling early and they're struggling to find out how to get back to that? Possibly. The T. Higgins thing, we'll see how that goes. You can send him right over to Buffalo. I'll be fine with that. But Amarius Mims, the athleticism there on the offensive line, you have to prioritize the line. You got to keep Joe Burrow upright. You have to at this point. That has to be like the number one priority, keeping him upright and protecting him so that he can hopefully stay healthy. The league is better when he's good and when he's on the field. So him being off the field with injuries, no one likes to see that. Amarius Mims, that massive wingspan, the athleticism that he has, the upside, like you said, if you tell me he's the best offensive tackle out of this draft class in 5 years, I'm not going to be surprised. Yeah. It's not how I have it graded right now, but the ceiling is ridiculous with that wingspan that he has. So yeah, it's a great draft class for Cincinnati. Hopefully Joe Burrow is back and healthy and on the field. We'll see how T. Higgins plays out. Jermaine Burton, speedster, down the field threat, like you said. Some potential character issues, concerns rather with him. So we'll see how that plays out with him at the next level. Also, if it wasn't for the character concerns, I don't think he would have lasted to the 3rd round. So
for sure,
it's a great draft for Cincinnati. I totally agree with that. I'm going to go on to one of mine. I'm going to go right back to the great state of Pittsburgh, and we're going to great state of Pittsburgh. God, John, the great state of Pennsylvania with Pittsburgh and their draft class. They also smoked it, had a terrific class. Speaking of offensive linemen, 2 picks after Amarius Mims, they get Troy Fautanu to Pitt, which might just be my favorite fit of any pick in the 1st round. What a stud to put there on the offensive line. The quarterback position in Pittsburgh, we know that that's unsettled. They moved on from Kenny Pickett. They got Russell Wilson. They also have Justin Fields. Rumors today that Justin Fields might return kicks. What?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Just keep going. Just keep going.
Okay, that's Jaylen Warren's fault, by the way. I'm calling him out for that one. Thanks for spreading that news around. But Troy Fautanu is a home run. No matter who's under center for this offensive line this coming year, Troy Fautanu getting plugged in there on the offensive line. He's a stud. That I think they're probably kicking him over to right tackle, most likely. I like him better at left tackle, but right tackle would work. There goes Harms with the soda to the eyeball. But then not only did they get Troy Fautanu at pick 20, which is a terrific value for Fautanu, I thought that he had a chance to go in the top 10. I thought he could have been a consideration for the Jets.
Yes, for sure.
You get Zach Frazier in the second round at center. So now you have just plug and play two great rookie offensive linemen with interior and outside offensive line flexibility to mix and match your best five, however that looks for you. That's terrific. They lost Deontay Johnson with him going down to Carolina. So then in the third round, they get Roman Wilson, who comes in and he provides great route running ability, and he dusted some guys down at the Senior Bowl that we watched.
Yeah.
And then in the third round also, a few picks later, you get Peyton Wilson, who, if it wasn't for the injuries, probably would have gone high second as the first linebacker off the board. The dude has insane instincts and athleticism. He can fly downhill, he can run stuff, and he's got speed to chase guys down from behind. And then you get some fillers on the back end, another interior offensive lineman in Mason McCormick from South Dakota State, defensive tackle depth with Logan Lee from Iowa, and then a corner, Ryan Watts, out of Texas in the 6th round. But those first 4 picks in particular for Pittsburgh is as good as it gets. I mean, it's a home run with what they were able to do to overhaul that offensive line. Now you have what projects to be probably one of the top offensive lines in the NFL. Probably, I mean, top 10 unit, maybe top 5 with how Fautanu and Frazier are capable of playing, and then Roman Wilson to come in as a route running guy and give you some separation ability when you have George Pickens, who hopefully can keep his head on straight and get right on the boundary. So it's great. I love it for what they were able to do. It's awesome.
This is a beautiful situation for not just these 2 quarterbacks, whoever's going to be next. Because let's be honest, we don't know if either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson is going to be here next year in Pittsburgh. Nobody knows that. So if they're not good, this is a young, talented offense, period. Pat Freiermuth is still young. I think I would put Mason McCormick as start your best 5, because Mason McCormick is one of the most experienced guards in this entire class. He started, I think, for 4 straight years at South Dakota State. He is a good mover, and I think that his testing matched when I was watching him on tape. Good mover. He's physical. He just gets the job done. I think he could start as well. I know they brought in James Daniels to play right guard, but this is a legitimate start your best 5 situation. Doesn't matter who it is. And I think all 3 of these rookies have an opportunity to start for Pittsburgh day 1. And then, Roman Wilson, it fits beautifully with George Pickens. You want George Pickens in that, in my opinion, you want him in the A.J. Brown role where he's maybe on some deep routes, but you want him breakers over the middle of the field, run a bunch of dig routes, get in the ball, and use Roman Wilson to stretch the field. And then you can bring him back into that maybe kind of like a Tyler Lockett role. That was my comp for Roman Wilson. So you have a guy who can run routes, but he can also stretch the field deep. He's got great ball skills and sideline awareness, body control. So the Steelers continue to do what they do best. I don't even know. I don't have words to describe this. I mean, this is why Mike Tomlin doesn't have losing seasons. Like, regardless, even though they've been mediocre the last couple of years, they find ways to get really good players wherever they're drafting. So hats off to them, because I even tweeted, I hate how much I love the Pittsburgh Steelers draft.
Yeah, same. I
So,
completely agree, because they're going to be annoying.
Yeah.
They're going to be around. They're going to have a winning season. Whoever's at quarterback, we'll probably see both quarterbacks at some point this year.
Absolutely.
And they're going to win games. And they're going to be the team that, like, all the fans are like, oh, cool, we got the Steelers, it'll be fine. But then when it comes down to game time, it's not going to be a game that you're looking forward to playing. What's really interesting, like you said, and I think that it's incredibly important to note, is that we don't know what the quarterback situation in 2025 is going to be. Now, the Steelers, like you said, are a perennial winning team under Mike Tomlin. This isn't a team that tanks. They're not going to be one of these teams that doesn't compete and ends up with a top 5 pick. It's still possible to get a top 5 pick. The wheels could fall off. Both quarterbacks get injured. Who knows? Like, you have no idea what's going to happen in the NFL. But hold on.
Go.
But Russell Wilson's only on a 1-year contract, and Justin Fields is on the last year of his rookie deal without the 5th-year option being picked up. You enter 2025 looking to take a swing for a quarterback in the draft or in free agency with this offensive line in front of them. You're set. I mean, that is a great atmosphere for a rookie quarterback to walk into. Hopefully, one that works out better than Kenny Pickett. Now, sir,
picture this: Dak Prescott in Pittsburgh. Dak Prescott does not have a contract after this year with the Dallas Cowboys. It looks like he's going to be a free agent. We'll find out, obviously. But imagine if the Dallas Cowboys do not get an extension done with Dak Prescott, and he goes and plays for Mike Tomlin in the prime of his career with the offensive line, with maybe Najee's there, maybe Najee's not there. But if they have a 1-2 role with Jalen Warren and Najee Harris or whoever it is, and the wide receivers, Pat Freiermuth, that seems like a situation for Dak Prescott to thrive. So that's just something that crossed my mind while we were going through that.
You know who else is going to be a free agent in 2025?
Who?
Calvin Ridley.
just airdrop him in there.
Boom. Calvin Ridley, Dak Prescott. With that offensive line, Mike Tomlin, you're cooking. Congratulations, AFC North champions.
Oh man,
you just saw it before.
There you go. Yep, we're having too much fun because we just made the Pittsburgh Steelers, you guys, as maybe Super Bowl champions in 2025. So there you go, Pittsburgh. Have fun with that idea for a little while. Did you guys hear the LA Rams had a first-round pick this year?
What?
They actually had a first-round pick this year, and funny enough, they didn't go offense, which is pretty much what everyone thought they were going to do. They decided to go defense. Love it. I love it, Sean McVay. You see the situation. You see everything going. I love this draft for the LA Rams. I think that this was a home run. You get Jared Verse, who was my defensive end 1 in this class. You get him at pick 19, and you come back with the guy who was the biggest winner of the entire pre-draft process, Braden Fisk. Not just athletic, but work his ass off. That's all he did. He just will continue to work his ass off. I love it. And then you bring in Blake Corum. We're going small running back season with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. Just going to grind the rock. That's what they want to do with Matthew Stafford. And then maybe to some dismay, Cam Kitchens, who really fell, was one of the, it's funny, they got maybe the biggest riser and the biggest faller in this draft with Braden Fisk and Cam Kitchens. But experience, and he's not going to be put in situations where he's going to be asked to use his athleticism. I think you're going to use his smarts. So that's the big thing here. They take some shots on Washington State defensive end Brennan Jackson, defensive tackle Tyler Davis out of Clemson, who's a very good run stopper, and he believes he's got upside as a pass rusher. Didn't show up on his tape all that much, but he's going to come in. He's going to stop the run. And then they add, I think, an underrated player in Jordan Whittington. I think Jordan Whittington is a legitimately good scheme diverse type of player that you can just get the ball to and say, make something happen. Line him up in the backfield, line him up as a wing, slot. You can use him all over the place, play special teams, and he's going to give you a ton of work. And then they come back in the end and draft 2 upside offensive linemen. Bo Lemur, who I think could also start at guard if you wanted him to. Mm-hmm. I think he was very good at center at the Senior Bowl. We saw that against Devondre Sweat. And KT Levinson out of Kansas State, probably kick him inside if you want to play guard. But they need some depth at tackle and offensive line in general to get the most out of this run game that they're going to have in LA. So I really like what they did top to bottom. Yes, they drafted a kicker, whatever. I don't care. At least it wasn't on day 2. Like it could have been worse. So you can always take solace in that. But really, I think that their first 2 picks set a standard, because those 2 guys may be the toughest and hardest working players at their respective positions in this draft. I think Jared Verse is always working. You always see him just effort. Braden Fisk, effort, and both out of Florida State. Like they have a type. They went and they got it.
It's awesome. I mean, the Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, Fisky business, who I fell in love with him in the pre-draft process.
Love.
Yeah, just love him. I love Braden Fisk. Short arms, don't care.
Don't
Whatever.
care.
Get that out of here. Just a motor of a player. Like you said, he and Jared Verse, the work ethic, just the grind. Like they're gonna bring that just tenacity to that defensive front. And it was so fun watching. One of my favorite things about the NFL draft is all the videos that come out the next week of the calls when the guys are getting the call or they're getting selected and stuff like that. It's so fun. I love it so much. Like, it's terrific. What was so cool about Braden Fisk is that when they called him, he was like, I get to play with Jared again. Like, he was just gushing that he gets to play with Jared Verse. And then Jared Verse, because he was the first round pick, he was already in LA. They told him on the phone, they're like, we were going to have Jared call you, but he got stuck in traffic. And while they're on the phone with Braden Fisk, Jared Verse like runs into the room. Like, he got there just a little bit late. So they passed the phone off, and Jared Verse and Braden Fisk are talking to each other, and they're like crying, and like, these are brothers, man. Like they strived for this, they dreamed of this, and now they get to go be teammates out in LA, the sunshine, the warm weather, the NFC West. It's great. Like, it's awesome. It's a terrific fit. And it, like you said, the attitude, the physicality, the work ethic that they're going to bring to that defensive front, let alone the production, is awesome. It's a great fit. Great that they were able to just pair them together. I mean, the familiarity, stack them on the same side of the defensive line and just let them go to work. Like, it's going to be awesome. I think that it was a great draft for the Rams. I'm going to keep it in the NFC West, and I'm going to stick with the Arizona Cardinals. And it's more than just Marvin Harrison Jr., because we all know that Marvin Harrison Jr. is a stud. By the way, that was the one player I got a question into, was Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah, got to ask him. Super fun. Woo. That was the last question asked before he walked off the stage, which was awesome. There was no moderator. It was just shouting over the top and see who gets it.
That's amazing.
Absolute chaos. I somehow got a seat like towards in the front row off to the very, very side. I don't know how I got there. I probably didn't belong, but I was there anyways. So we know it was Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, who is a generational wide receiver prospect. And that term gets thrown around very, very loosely. I'm not saying that loosely. He's a generational wide receiver prospect. Very interesting that he hasn't signed his NFLPA licensing agreement yet. Have you seen that?
I have. That's an interesting one. Yeah. Like you said, I don't really get it. But from what I've seen, that it's got to do with the dispute with Fanatics. They offered him a contract when he was a sophomore, and he doesn't want to sign it based off that. I don't know. This is we're entering unprecedented waters, so just keep an eye on that.
Yeah, but after Marvin Harrison Jr., who you pair him with Kyler Murray, and that's a lot of fun. I think you're going to get the most out of Kyler Murray by giving him some actual weapons. So here's what they did. You go Marvin Harrison Jr. with the 4th overall pick. 27th overall pick, you get Darius Robinson, the defensive end out of Missouri, who is a bit of a tweener, D-tackle, like kind of 3-tech edge. You can kind of line him up a little bit, kind of wherever you want in that regard. But super athletic and super twitched up, and fast action kind of guy. He's a bit of a question mark for me. It's not my favorite pick in the world, but it is kind of right in line with where everyone is expecting him to get drafted basically in the late first because of the upside that he brings. So I get it. After that, though, is where, to me, it got really interesting. Max Melton, cornerback out of Rutgers, is a very good cornerback. I love that pick. And then in the 3rd round, you get Trey Benson to be the running back. They still have James Conner there, but James Conner's on his last year of the deal, and he's getting old. Well, now you have a succession plan with a true workhorse running back out of this draft class. The second one to get drafted after Jonathan Brooks went to Carolina. Yeah. You beef up the offensive line with Isaiah Adams out of Illinois. And then you go tight end Tip Raymond, also out of Illinois, in the 3rd round. Tip Raymond is such a stud at blocking. Like, as an inline tight end, to go in there and just muck it up and clean stuff up and spring guys loose. He's awesome. Like, he's not going to be your receiving tight end, but what I love about this is that now if you have 2 tight ends on the field, you have Trey McBride freed up as the receiving threat with Tip Raymond lined up in line, who can also catch some passes, and you're going to leak him out from time to time, and you're going to have him do other stuff. But his ability in pass protection and run blocking is awesome. So I love that as like an extra lineman up front in front of Kyler to help out Trey Benson and James Cook in the backfield and make sure that Kyler has time to get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr., which he's going to do roughly 190 times this coming year. The rest of the draft, they had a ton of picks, and they got a bunch of upside. Elijah Jones, cornerback out of Boston College, was kind of one of my favorite sleeper corners in this class. And he went in the 3rd round, which is higher than I thought that he was going to. But I like him as a player. And then Dadrian Taylor Demerson, the safety out of Texas Tech, another high upside safety. Christian Jones, offensive tackle out of Texas, all upside. Like at the athleticism that he has, the size that he needs some refinement, but to get him in the 5th round, he has a bunch of upside to potentially come in as a starter down the line in a couple years if you need him to. We'll see how he develops. I think it's a great draft for Arizona, kind of similar to what Carolina did. They're like, we're going to give a whole bunch of weapons to Bryce Young. They did the same thing, but for Kyler Murray, who's already a proven asset in the NFL. But I think it was almost like we saw that we didn't have anything around him in the last couple of years. The injuries, really bogged him down. The weapons went by the wayside. DeAndre Hopkins is gone. They needed a reboot there on the offensive side of the ball, and I think they brought in a bunch of pieces to potentially help orchestrate that offense for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm not as high on this class as you are. I don't think they did enough at wide receiver. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. We don't know about Michael Wilson. You still got a lot of problems at wide receiver on this roster. I mean, I like Greg Dortch, but you can improve upon Greg Dortch and the depth behind your wide receivers. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. Then you have a lot of unproven or just mediocre players.
Yep.
I would have drafted another receiver and not Tip Raymond on day 2. Who, again, you could have probably gotten on day 3 because I understand the athletic ability. I understand the physical nature that he's going to bring. This is more of a culture fit, right? You want players that are going to be physical and you can help protect with some athletic upside. I get it. Personally, would have gone in a different direction. But Isaiah Adams, I think right now is going to be their starting left guard. So that was a nice pick at 71. Trey Benson, they're like, hey, this running back kind of looks like James Conner, but he's way faster. So let's go ahead and just draft him. And we're going to just kind of move on when he's done after this year. And Trey Benson's going to be the guy. I like that. And I think Darian Taylor Demerson was my favorite day 3 pick of theirs. He was day 3, right? 104. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Christian Jones, we don't really know why he fell because he probably should have gone higher based on his tape. I think he was an extremely physical, aggressive right tackle. Obviously, he had some issues with getting over his skis a little bit and not staying engaged on blocks, and that can be worked out. So, all in all, I think this was an up and down draft for the Cardinals. But at the end of the day, you've got darts. Just throw darts. Just throw them all out, and we'll figure it out. So. I'm not going to argue too much. You end up coming with Marvin Harrison Jr. So, oh no, things aren't too bad there. So just not a bad draft, but I would have done some things differently myself. But now to end my side here, we're going to go back to where the conversation took us from the Pittsburgh. We're talking about a little bit Dak Prescott, a little bit of the Dallas Cowboys. I like what the Dallas Cowboys did, even though all off season long, we heard Jerry Jones saying, we're all in, and you did nothing. You brought back Ezekiel Elliott. Cool.
I tweeted this out earlier today. If you told me 2 years ago that Zeke Elliott would be the lead back and Tony Pollard would not be on the roster in 2024 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But then I said, although I probably would have, because Jerry.
Exactly. That's exactly that's the truth of it, isn't it? Like Jerry Jones marches to the beat of his own drummer and then to the beat of that own drummer's drummer. Like it's a weird situation that they've got, but he does his own thing and there's a reason that they haven't won playoff games. That's all I'll say. When we're looking at this draft class, I think the first 2 picks are one of the big difference makers. Yes, Tyler Guyton has a lot of technical work to become a legitimately stud strong NFL tackle. The upside is 100% there. A guy who played more of like this H-back tight end role before he played offensive tackle, and he's just pure upside. He played right tackle 2 years ago, then left tackle this year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong about that. No, I think he played left tackle the last 2 years because Wanya Morris played right tackle. Yeah, Wanya Morris played right tackle at for Oklahoma 2 years ago. So you have him now. He's been playing left tackle for 2 years. You bring him into Dallas, who continuously not only drafts really good offensive linemen, but they seemingly develop really good offensive linemen. So it's a good situation there. Marshawn Nealand may be the most underrated guy. He might end up also being the best passer rusher from this class. all pure upside coming out of Western Michigan. Toolsy, maybe the toolsiest guy in the class with long arms, 34.5-inch arms. This guy has speed to power. He has the athletic ability you're looking for. He can counter inside. Right now, he needs to work on, the plan. That's the big thing for a lot of these guys is you have to get all these tools and then figure out how to sequence them. How am I going to beat this tackler here? How am I going to use this here? So all the tools in the world to do that. And then they just, draft Cooper Beebe at pick number 73 and say, hey, welcome to maybe a center for the next decade plus, or wherever they want to play him. And it doesn't really matter to me. You can play him at guard, you can play him at center. I think it'd be fine, either one. And I really love the Kalen Carson pick at 174. Kalen Carson is a physical, really good change of direction corner. Maybe not the best speed, but you can put him inside, you can put him outside. It's going to be tough for guys to get away from him because he can use his arms and his short area change of direction to keep in guys' hip pockets. And that's really what he does well. And he's got really good ball skills. So I love that pick. And honestly, Ryan Flournoy just kind of like won me over at the Senior Bowl. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't doing anything like crazy good, but he was like open. And I'm like, I like you. You're like, he's going to fill in probably like the better Jalen Tolbert, which I'm really upset about because I love Jalen Tolbert coming out. And that's probably the role that he fills. Then you get a couple of depth guys from offensive tackle and Justin Rogers out of Auburn and Louisiana, respectively. So it's a good, I think, bones draft. Trenches and a couple of ancillary pieces that you needed on defense and offensive line. Like I really like this in terms of what they realize kind of what they are. They have the weapons. They have everything else from like a other bones perspective. Dak, this is the last year. We're going to try and make it happen.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The comments from Jerry Jones about we're all in lines up with the ability or the thought process of not extending Dak. Like it lines up to say you're all in.
Yeah.
With no news of there being a new contract for Dak Prescott makes sense.
Sure.
But then they didn't do that.
But we're not.
it's almost like they're just planning for life after him. Like I don't know. Like it's Cooper Beebe, Tyler Guyton. Those are trench guys. Those are studs, and they are great offensive linemen, and they were great picks for the team. But it doesn't fit the rhetoric of we're all in. This is Dak. Woo! We brought back 21. Who's gonna wear 15? Like, good luck with that. Good luck selling the new 15 jerseys, by the way. Everyone's just going to pull the 21s out of their closet and they're going to go for it. But it's weird to me because the rhetoric and the not extending Dak doesn't line up with this draft class. So
for sure,
it's going to be a great situation if they do decide to move on from Dak. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback after that, but it's going to be a great situation. Their offensive line and their weapons are going to be pretty damn good, and we know their defense is. Yeah, it's Trey Lance. There we go.
It's Trey Lance. They're just setting the table for Trey Lance to take over next year.
God. If that's the plan, I'm going to laugh.
Don't take this away from me. How dare you? I'm rooting for Trey Lance. Go Trey. Come on.
Come on, Trey. You can do it, buddy. We believe. Kind of, sort of, maybe. But anyways, no disrespect to Trey Lance, except maybe a little bit of disrespect to Trey Lance. But it doesn't make sense to me in that regard. But I like the picks.
That's fair.
So for the long-term trajectory of the team, I get it. But it's almost like Jerry Jones doesn't know how to go all in. Like he's stuck kind of in the middle, or he's a preseason favorite every year, which might be why they end up moving on from Dak, because they're like, we have not been able to get over the hump, so we need to try something different. And Dak is a good quarterback. Like I think he's a good, talented NFL quarterback. But can he win you playoff games? That's a whole other question for Skip Bayless to go on a 4-hour rant about. But I like the picks. I like the players that they took. I like Tyler Guyton. I like Cooper Beebe in particular. And like you said, Ryan Flournoy was just kind of always open down in Mobile against some top tier talent. What I've learned recently is that I need to go to a Western Michigan University game, considering that campus is like 30 minutes from me. So I need to make that happen.
Near you.
Right near me. It's in my backyard. I gotta. Oh yeah, they are, man. Every year this guy's going to the league, so I gotta get there. Do a little in-person scouting this next year.
Absolutely.
See who's on the radar. The last team that we're going to discuss here, and we're going to try to get out of here just under the 1 hour mark, which for us is pretty impressive. The Baltimore Ravens, another team that I thought did a very good job. There are questions in their draft class for sure. I don't think it's maybe the best team in the league, but we had already talked about 7. So here's the other one.
Yeah.
The reason why I like this draft class is because they strengthened strengths, they identified weaknesses on their team, and they went and they filled some of those. And they got Nate Wiggins at pick 30, who might have been the biggest value in the first round of the NFL draft. Nate Wiggins fell because he weighed in small, I guess.
He's
like
small.
that's the only reason that I can think of. But he's damn good at football. He's arguably the best cover corner in this draft class. And Baltimore, they had him circled. They wanted him. I think I saw that they tried to trade up a couple times because they thought that they needed to in order to get him. And those talks fell through, and then he fell to them anyways. And they were like almost crying tears of joy in their draft room because he was available to them. He's going to plug right in day one into that secondary and be a stud. Roger Rosengarten, very good right tackle opposite Troy Fautanu out of Washington. I love the pick at 62. Yeah. I think it's awesome. Adisa Isaac, high upside athletic edge rusher to throw in on a rotational basis. And then Devontae Walker, who fell because of a really bad pre-draft process. He was dropping everything in Mobile, didn't test incredibly well, looked a little shaky, but we know that he's really good at running straight and running far. And I think that they're going to have him do that in Baltimore.
He's replace Nelson Aguilar. Like, he's Nelson Aguilar, right? Like he's going to replace him.
He's like Aguilar, but like a little bit longer, I think. Maybe a little bit, but yeah, I mean, basically he's going to fill the Nelson Aguilar role. You tell me that you get that in the 4th round. Sure. Like I like him there. I wouldn't have liked him with a high second round pick, but in the 4th round, sure. He's athletic in straight lines and can get that done and reel in the deep ball and stuff like that. So you got that working with Zay Flowers and your tight end room that you have. And then in the 5th round, you add in Rasheen Ali, running back out of Marshall, who's a little powder keg to give you some more depth out of that running back room. I think it's a really good draft. I mean, it's not like an A+ draft, but I think it's really solid all the way through, which just checks out because Baltimore drafts very well. Mm-hmm. You know, they have one of the best scouting departments and general managers in the NFL. And like what we talked about with Philly, like what we talked about with Pittsburgh, they know what they are and they have their process and they go about it systematically. And every year it seems to work out very well. And they also know how to coach their players to their strengths. Like this is probably the best landing spot in the league for Devontae Walker. And I know that that's kind of weird to say with a running quarterback, if you want to label him that in Lamar Jackson, but this team knows how to get the most out of all of their players and scheme their players to their strengths. So if you tell me that Devontae Walker ends up being like statistically a top 6 or 7 wide receiver in this draft class in his rookie season, I'm not going to be surprised by that because they're going to play to his strengths and get him a couple of those deep shots per game with maybe they can work with him to help him kind of expand his route tree a little bit, work on the hips, work on the footwork, and be able to, add some more wiggle into that route tree. But I think it's a great developmental landing spot for Tez Walker. So I think this is a really solid draft class, top to bottom. Really good picks.
Yeah, Baltimore does what they do every single year. They sit there and they wait, and they happen to have someone great fall into their lap every single year. And this year it was Nate Wiggins. They took 3 DBs in this class, mind you. Nate Wiggins, TJ Tampa, who fell far out of Iowa State. Mm-hmm. He basically foregoed the entire pre-draft process, not going to the Senior Bowl. I think that turned teams off. Did not want to deal with that. But physical press man type corner fits what they want to do. They can rotate him in and out. And then, they take Sanusi Kane out of Purdue, another defensive back. Going to be more of maybe a special teamer, maybe a return guy. I don't know. But
kind of a
at the end of the
guy, but
yeah, so that's what they do. And I think I actually like the Devin Leary pick personally. I know that that's weird as a backup guy, but I was watching him. I'm like, okay, I can see. I can see the vision. He might be able to be developed into a legitimate backup for Lamar Jackson. I like that. But these things make sense. Structurally, they make sense. Wiggins fits. Roger Rosengarten fits. You're going to plug him in right at right tackle. He's going to start. He's going to be good. Adisa Isaac fits what they want from a defensive physical standpoint. They have Kyle Van Noy on one side right now. He's going to be, when Kyle Van Noy comes out the field, it's Adisa Isaac. Physical. I'm going to come right through you. I have some pass rush moves more than you think I do, and it feels like Kyle Van Noy. Like Kyle Van Noy, if you think he's not going to beat you, then he does. Like I think Adisa Isaac can do the same thing. You look at the opposite side. They have Adafe Owe and David Ojabo. So they're pairing these guys with speed and power rushers. I like that. I like that a lot for Baltimore. They do this every single year. They consistently find themselves in positions to just be one of the best teams coming out of the draft, and they absolutely improve themselves. We'll see about Devontae Walker, but at the end of the day, again, he fits. They want a speed, vertical, ball-winning guy on the outside. He's going to do that. He can do that better than Nelson Aguilar does, in my opinion. So wouldn't shock me to see him on their starting rotation in wide receiver. So Baltimore continuing to do what they always do.
They also got a very, very interesting undrafted free agent signing as well. Bo Braid didn't get drafted.
That's right. Bo Braid, safety.
They were able to scoop him up also. So again, just making smart signings. Bo Braid, Sanusi Kane, a couple of safeties to kind of back up Kyle Hamilton, maybe get some special teams reps in, just more options there in the secondary. Nate Wiggins being the headliner of that. It's awesome. I mean, so now you have Nate Wiggins, who's probably going to be maybe on the right side of the defense in man corner who can just fly around. I'm curious to see if the size does impact him at the next level, because he is small. Was he 174 pounds? I think is what he weighed in at the combine. That is slight, but he can play, and he's very, very talented. So we'll see how it goes, man. The NFL draft was wild. Props to Detroit for putting on just a great event. Awesome. It ran super smooth. Eminem came out on stage. The entire place erupted. It's Detroit. I mean, they brought out I don't know if you saw it on TV, but they had this whole thing on the screen with he and Roger Goodell filmed this thing where they were going to like pretend to rap battle, and then they both came out on stage. And I thought for a second, I'm like, oh my God, please tell me that Roger Goodell is about to rap Eminem. Like it needs to happen.
It needs
I need it like air. And then they were like, we'll save that for another time. And the whole place just went, oh, like everyone wanted to see it. I needed
it would have been great.
4 bars out of Goodell, just 4 bars. And for Eminem to just roast him, it would have been awesome. Go whole 8 mile on him. Would have been great. Electric atmosphere, great draft, lots of players. We're going to continue to talk about this year's draft class over the next episode. I think after that, we'll start turning our attention to 2025, start getting into that a little bit, buddy. I'm so excited. The spreadsheets are pumping. The names are filling in. I'm so stoked. It's going to be great. I cannot wait to go through an entire draft cycle with you and bring that information to this show. I think by this time next year, dude, we're going to be absolutely cooking with what we know. It's going to be great. Next year's draft is in Green Bay, Wisconsin, by the way. So nice. Hopefully I'll see you there and we can do that. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening, for tuning in. If you are not following In Harm's Way 19 on Twitter, please do so. Please follow me as well at John Helmkamp. It is the Cover One College Football YouTube channel. Find us there so you can see our beautiful faces and Daniel holding a Coke cup to his face. Yep. You can listen to this wherever you listen to your podcasts. That's about it. So until next time, guys, we will see you next week. Thanks so much. Have a good one.